Okay. Good evening. The Planning Commission meeting of April 26th, 2023 will come to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Secretary will call roll.
Commissioner Mayer,
Here.
Commissioner Mann,
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Rice,
Here.
Chairperson Tolson.
Here. May I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second? We have a second?
Second.
A motion was made by Vice Chair Rice and a second by Commissioner Mann. Unless there are objections, the agenda stands approved. May I have a motion for approval of the March 29th and 23 minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Motion was made by Mayor, a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. A motion was made by Commissioner Mayer and a second by Vice Chair Rice. Unless there are any objections, the minutes are approved. The Secretary will read the declaration of conflict.
If any member of the Planning Commission may have a conflict of interest or any reason why that member must abstain from consideration of any matter on this agenda, he or she should so declare at this time.
Are there any declarations of conflict? Thank you very much. This is the time allotted for public statements or comments on all items other than public hearing items. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to be heard? Do we have correspondence?
Yes, Chairman Tolson, we provided you two supplemental staff report items for agenda item 11A1 regarding the baseball and softball training facility, and they were emailed to you and provided to you at your desk tonight.
Thank you very much. Consent. May I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. A motion was made by Commissioner Mayer with a second by Commissioner Kennedy. Unless there are any objections, the consent calendar stands approved. All right, let's go. This is the time and place set for a public hearing on the consideration of CUP-S-2022-0019 and the determination that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. Are there any ex parte communications to report?
I was at the neighborhood council meeting, but I didn't talk to the developer.
Perfect. Thank you very much. May we have an oral report on this matter by staff?
Yes, Chairman Tolson, members of the Planning Commission. This is a much-awaited request for a operation of a new baseball and training facility within the Wood Ranch Shopping Center. Our associate planner, Cesar Hernandez, will have a presentation tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. The applicant, Philip Green Jr., is requesting a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a baseball and softball training facility within an existing 13,939 square foot commercial tenant space within the Wood Ranch Shopping Center. The applicant may be granted a CUP at the discretion of the Planning Commission, provided that the proposed use is consistent with the findings. The proposed site fronts Country Club Drive at the northeast corner of Wood Ranch Parkway. Access to the facility is provided from Country Club Drive by 2 existing driveways. The proposed tenant space sits between a laser tag to the west and to the CVS store to the east. There are also existing multifamily residential units located to the west and east of the shopping center, as shown on the site. The proposed training facility will focus on the mechanics of baseball and softball, provide advice on how to improve performance using business experience and technology from the professional staff. The applicant is proposing an interior tenant improvement with a minor exterior modification. The building design will remain the same. The layout of the facility will consist of 10 batting cages, a front desk, 2 offices, a pro shop, 2 restrooms, a conference room, a parents' lounge, and 2 storage units as shown on this slide. Here's the exterior elevation facing Country Club Drive. The applicant is proposing to modify the entry door on the west side of the tenant space and remove the shopping cart corral. Otherwise, the applicant is not proposing any other exterior improvements. The project is consistent with the general plan and Wood Ranch specific plan. And 215 parking spaces required, including the tenant use and the other uses in the center. However, there are a total of 290 parking spaces in the entire shopping center. Therefore, there's adequate parking for the tenant as well as the other uses in the center. The project would be compatible with the surroundings and is consistent with the other buildings in the vicinity and within the shopping center to maintain existing character, design, scale. Therefore, it would remain consistent with the zoning map and Wood Ranch specific plan, the land use pattern. The proposed project qualifies for an exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve conditional use permit number CUP-S-2022-0019 as conditioned in the resolution. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff will address any questions from the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Do we have any questions of staff by a commissioner? Beautiful. We will open the public testimony portion of the hearing. Would the applicant like to present the project? I've got 2 cards. One is Philip Green and Courtney Davidson. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Glad you're here tonight.
Well, good evening, chair, members of the commission. My name is Philip Green. I'm owner and president of Thrill Play, Inc. and franchisee of DBAT Academies. Staff has given a thorough staff report, and we agree with their findings. We also want to thank staff for their hard work on this project. So on behalf of DBAT Academies, we look forward to being a part of Simi Valley. DBAT is the largest indoor baseball and softball training facility franchise in the world. DBAT is a Texas-based company which has over 140 locations across the United States and additional locations in Asia. DBAT provides private lessons, camps and clinics, team rentals, and automated batting cages that use hitting and pitching simulation technology. At the proposed Simi Valley DBAT Academy, the machine pitch tunnels will offer HitTrax batting simulation technology, and the pitching tunnels will offer Rapsodo pitching analysis technology. We want to ensure ball players of all ages and abilities have the best available tools to improve their game. Through the new proposed main entry storefront, the facility will showcase a fully stocked pro shop, which carries a full line of baseball and softball merchandise for both youth and adults. Patrons will get to choose from such name brands as Oakley, Easton, Rawlings, Franklin, and more. For over 20 years, the primary goal and mission of DBAT is to provide a high-quality, well-lit, climate-controlled teaching environment with professional instruction to enhance the baseball and softball experience for players at all levels. In terms of the local market here, you may be wondering why we've chosen Simi Valley, California. Well, as you may be aware, that Southern California is nationally known as a hotbed for youth and adult competitive baseball and softball. Simi Valley is certainly no exception. Our market data shows that DBAT's primary core customers make up a significant portion of the population. Within a 10-mile radius of our proposed Wood Ranch location, there are approximately 15 high schools, a dozen middle schools, and many more elementary schools, 9 recreational baseball and softball leagues, and dozens of travel ball programs. There are 6 universities and colleges within a 15-mile radius, all of which carry competitive baseball programs. The bottom line is that we are very excited and grateful for the opportunity to serve Simi Valley community. While the core demographic for a DBAT facility ranges from 6 to 18 years of age, it is also true that some of MLB's top players and prospects have trained at DBAT. Even more players have earned college scholarships, but as you can see with this slide, there are quite a few notable DBAT alumni in the MLB. It's hard to read those names, but just to name one, I got several here, but I'll just name one. Everyone seems to know Clayton Kershaw, Cy Young winner and MLB All-Star. Lastly, I would like to share a recent announcement by DBAT and USSSA. USSSA is America's largest multi-sport association and is proud to announce a partnership with DBAT Academies, making indoor facilities across the country the host of over 70 USSSA Baseball All-American Games tryouts in 2023. The program recognizes top athletes aged 8U through 16U. Through this partnership, athletes can try out for the All-American teams at a first-class indoor DBAT facility that's close to their location. Upon approval, DBAT Simi Valley will be very excited to welcome local athletes into our facility and serve as host for these USSSA All-American Games tryouts. And based on the neighborhood council meeting and questions from other sources, the following slide will hopefully clarify any information that was not provided in the bulk of this presentation. And that's about all I have to say, except thank you for your time this evening. I'm very grateful to be here, and if the commissioners have any more questions, we're happy to answer them now.
Ms. Davidson, you have anything to say? I do not. Beautiful. Thank you very much. Are there any questions to the applicant by our commissioners? Okay. That's it. Thank you very much. Go ahead and take a seat.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to be heard on this matter that has filled out a card or not, but would like to be heard on this subject? Okay. Are there any comments from staff regarding the presentation?
Yeah, I was just reading through this and the amount of local support it got and the letters.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet?
We're going to close.
You're not staff yet. Staff.
We're real close. No problem. No? It's okay.
No comments from staff.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, we will close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Now, are there any comments or questions from members of the Planning Commission?
No.
Commissioner Kennedy, you get to go first.
Yeah, having a grandson at 10 years old in the local little leagues and such, and having viewed the local training facilities, welcome. It's just going to be a welcome to Simi Valley on my part. And the amount of local support that you got and the letters and such was very promising. Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner
Yes.
Mayor?
Thank you. I'm very grateful that you've chosen Simi for your new business location. It's a great addition to our town. It's going to be a great addition, if hopefully approved, to everybody, our kids and our adults. And I love this project. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Vice Chair?
As Commissioner Kennedy said, all the correspondence we've received was definitely positive, and the neighbors, including the neighborhood council, has definitely been in favor of it. So that's definitely a plus. And there's nothing that goes against CEQA or any of our guidelines or anything like that. So, and I completely agree with what the commissioner said. This is a great location for this. I know a lot about the local softball, and my brother-in-law is so wrapped up in softball right now. And baseball and everything else, and my kids played softball or baseball, and so I think this is a great addition to the city and the area, and I think we're proud to have you here in Simi Valley, and this is a great addition to the city, and so thank you for coming here.
Thank you very much. You know, it's beautiful. Okay. Just great presentation. We're glad you're coming to Simi Valley. Glad you picked Simi Valley and the location you're at. It's a spot that's been empty for many years, and so this is filling a desire of ours. So, and you've done all the right things. It's too bad we weren't doing this in January, so you could have been open by opening day. But that's may I have please have a reading of the resolution.
Resolution number SVPC 07-2023. A resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Simi Valley approving conditional use permit number CUP-S-2022-0019 to allow the operation of a baseball and softball training facility within an existing 13,939 square foot commercial tenant space at 591B Country Club Drive, and a determination that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
The chair will now entertain a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution approving case number CUP-222-0019, the request to allow a baseball and softball training facility, and a determination that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
A motion was made by Commissioner Mayer. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. The appeal period for the CUP-S-2022-0019 is 14 calendar days. And we'll proceed to the next item. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the night, or you can go on your merry way and celebrate if you like. We're going to take a brief break while the next presentation is prepared.
Oh, I'm going to have my birthday party there.
And we have a discussion and request for direction on standards for 2-unit residential developments, SB 9, to be incorporated into a permanent ordinance. Staff.
Yes, Chairman Tolson, members of the Planning Commission. This is a discussion item on getting feedback from the commission on possible changes we want to make to our SB 9 ordinance. Currently, it's in an interim ordinance provision, which actually expires at the end of December. And staff is preparing a permanent ordinance for Planning Commission and City Council consideration. And this discussion item tonight is to get initial feedback. So when we come back to the commission with a public hearing in a couple months, we'll have a more solid idea of what the commission may be looking for. So our Associate Planner, Elizabeth Richardson, will have a presentation, and then we'll open up the discussion.
We will have a discussion regarding revisions to the interim SB 9 ordinance as it relates to the adoption of the permanent ordinance. A little bit of background. On September 16th, 2021, the governor signed Senate Bill 9, which became effective on January 1st of 2022. The bill allows property owners to develop a single-family lot with 2 primary dwelling units and divide the property into 2 individual lots. The City Council adopted Interim Ordinance 1335 on January 24th, 2022, which is set to expire on December 17th, 2023. SB 9 is a housing law that promotes small-scale neighborhood residential development by creating a streamlined process for homeowners to create duplexes or subdivide their existing single-family zone property. Development using SB 9 is ministerial and does not require a public hearing. 2 new terms that were created for the interim ordinance were, the first term is 2-unit residential development, which is defined as a development with no more than 2 residential units located on a single lot in a single-family residential zone. The residential units may be located in a single building that contains 2 primary residential units, also known as a duplex, or in 2 detached buildings. A 2-unit residential tentative parcel map is also called an urban lot split in the new SB 9 law, and the 2 terms are used interchangeably in the ordinance. A 2-unit residential tentative parcel map creates no more than 2 parcels from an existing conforming parcel in a single-family residential zone. Tonight's discussion will not include urban lot splits, and it will be included as part of the permanent ordinance. For a property to be eligible for development using SB 9, they must be located in an urbanized area in a single-family zone outside of a wildlife habitat area. Allowed zones for SB 9 development in the city of Simi Valley are the open space, residential estate, residential very low, residential low, residential medium, and residential planned development zones. If a property is located in the very high fire hazard zone, flood zone, or Alquest Priola fault zone, they must be designed to mitigate the effects of their hazard, such as meeting the fire code or determining a buildable area on the site. State law gives cities specific requirements for 2-unit residential development, but also gives cities flexibility to implement their own objective design standards as long as it does not restrict 2 800-square-foot units from being constructed on the property. The state requires the rear and side yard setbacks to be 4 feet maximum, and the state also restricts cities from requiring more than 1 parking space per unit unless the property is located within a half-mile radius of a high-quality transit corridor, and in these locations, no parking can be required. In Simi Valley, the high-quality transit corridor is the Metrolink train station. The building official may deny SB 9 development based on evidence that the development would have specific adverse impacts on public health and safety or physical environment, and which there is no feasible method to satisfactorily mitigate or avoid the impact. Rental units must be for a term longer than 30 days, and if the property is divided using SB 9, the property owner is required to use a unit as a primary residence for a minimum of 3 years. While SB 9 regulates many development standards for the addition of new units and subdividing lots, it also gives cities the ability to adopt objective design standards to guide development on eligible properties. Objective design standards incorporated into our interim ordinance include unit sizes, building height and building separation, open space and landscaping, and garage parking. SB 9 is different from an ADU in that an SB 9 unit is a primary dwelling unit similar to a single-family residence. In Simi Valley, the SB 9 unit will have a separate utilities as well as a separate address, whereas an ADU and JADU are dwellings accessory to a primary dwelling unit. In Simi Valley, an ADU has utilities shared with the primary dwelling unit, and it does not have a separate address. When a property is developed with 2 SB 9 units, each primary unit is eligible to have 1 ADU or JADU for a total of 4 units on the property. On December 15th, 2021, the Planning Commission was presented the proposed ordinance for review and discussion. The item was continued to a date uncertain for further discussion on topics related to parking, including enforcement of parking of vehicles inside of a garage, alternative parking options including uncovered parking and carports, and how vehicles will access parking in the rear yard. The purpose of tonight's discussion is to explore opportunities to improve the interim SB 9 ordinance and incorporate changes into the permanent ordinance. Since the interim ordinance was adopted in 2022, several property owners have approached the city to develop their properties using SB 9. Through conversations and review of proposed site plans, staff has assembled a list of items that could be amended with the permanent ordinance. These items include parking, open space, and larger unit sizes. The first discussion item is required parking. State SB 9 law allows cities to require no more than 1 off-street parking space for each SB 9 unit. One exception to this rule is when the property is located within a half mile of a high-quality transit stop, which in Simi Valley is again the Metrolink train station. State law also gives the city the ability to adopt objective design standards to regulate the type and location of the required parking. The interim ordinance requires an SB 9 unit to have 1 off-street parking space inside of a garage. This garage space can be shared within the existing 2-car garage, or a new 1-car garage may be constructed. As these rules have been applied to SB 9 projects, concerns have been raised about the ability to regulate shared garage parking. As expressed by the Planning Commission in 2021, there may be alternative parking scenarios available for the permanent ordinance. These could include sharing the 2-car garage, requiring each SB 9 unit to have their own 1-car garage, allowing parking for the new SB 9 unit to be on an existing or new driveway without a garage, requiring garage parking only when both the SB 9 units are new construction, and not requiring parking on or driveway spaces for SB 9 units. Each of these options have both pros and cons to them that should be considered for the permanent ordinance, and we will discuss these in the next slides. Here are these scenarios side by side. These are illustrations showing possible ways each of the scenarios could be designed. On these slides, the yellow squares and triangles represent the parking areas in the individual scenarios. The Planning Commission's recommendation tonight could include one or a combination of these scenarios. Scenario A would allow the existing residents in SB 9 unit to share the existing 2-car garage. Advantages to this scenario would be the shared garage uses the existing curb cut, and disadvantages would be challenges with enforcing the shared use of the garage. And again, on these illustrations, the yellow represents the location of the garage in this scenario. Scenario B would require each SB 9 unit to have its own individual 1-car garage. Advantages to this would be elimination of the enforcement challenges of the shared garage. Disadvantages would be the new curb cuts could reduce the available on-street parking, and the additional pavement may reduce the landscaping and increase on-site parking, which would reduce neighborhood aesthetics. For this option, there are potentially 2 locations for driveways dependent upon site access. The driveway and the garage could be located adjacent to the existing garage and driveway. However, in some instances, there may not be sufficient width to allow vehicle access to the rear yard. In this case, the garage and driveway would be located on the opposite side of the property from the existing garage. Scenario C would allow parking for the SB9 unit to be on the existing or new driveway. The driveway would be located on either side of the front yard, and a new garage would not be required. However, a new curb cut may be needed. Advantages of parking on the driveway would eliminate curb cuts and enforcement concerns. Disadvantages would be potential conflicts with zoning requirements to provide a 9-foot by 20-foot paved space in front of the garage. And these are the two scenarios. On scenario on the left, this is where the driveway would just be expanded for a car to be parked in open parking. And on the example on the right, they would pour a new concrete pad and a new curb cut would be placed here in order to park one car. Scenario D would require garage parking only when both SB9 units are new construction. In this illustration, the two green boxes represent the two SB9 units with one new shared driveway and a new garage with individual parking areas. Advantages would be the driveway, curb cuts, and garage layouts could be designed to minimize impacts to street parking. Disadvantages could be that the additional garages could require additional driveways and reduce the landscaping unless design standards are adopted to restrict garage access to one main driveway per street frontage. And in this example that we created, the garage is, the individual garages are within one building, but there would be a demising wall in the middle. Scenario E would not require additional parking for the new SB9 unit when there is an existing dwelling with a garage. Advantages to this option are preservation of landscaping, prevention of overpaving, minimized curb cuts, and preservation of on-street parking. Parking could be provided at the discretion of the property owner on an as-needed basis, and the original house maintaining its existing garage and parking field. Disadvantages to this option is this could result in additional cars parked on the street if the property owner does not voluntarily construct on-street parking. The second discussion item tonight is open space requirements. The interim SB9 ordinance does not require usable outdoor open space to be a component of the site design. An SB9 development is allowed to have a total of 4 units on a single property that can include the existing single-family residence, 1 SB9 unit, and 2 ADUs. In some instances, site plans that comply with these requirements leave only small, usable outdoor spaces for barbecues, patio tables and chairs, or other private outdoor uses. Possible options to consider include requiring a percentage of the yard to be made available for residents' use or require greater separation between the buildings. The Planning Commission could also consider a minimum 100 square foot level open space area for each SB9 unit. A third option is to reduce the size of the accessory structures such as storage sheds or additional garages to ensure that adequate and usable open space is provided. Here is an example of a possible scenario of an existing house, a new SB9 unit, and 2 ADUs. The permanent ordinance could include allowable objective standards to maintain a 10-foot to 20-foot building separation between SB9 units, a minimum usable open space requirement that is level and away from unusable hillsides, and while the interim ordinance requires SB9 units not to cover more than 40% of the required rear yard setback, the permanent ordinance could be strengthened with additional open space allowances, but while maintaining confines of state law. Please note that the ADUs under different state laws could conflict with some of the SB9 standards. However, there appears to be some flexibility to restrict SB9 building coverage on a yard as long as an 800 square foot unit is permitted. One possibility to restrict SB9 units over 800 square feet if they could not provide the city's open space requirement. The final discussion item tonight is unit size restrictions. State law requires cities to allow an SB9 unit that is a minimum size of 800 square feet, but there is no maximum size specified in state law. Cities are able to use objective design standards to allow units larger than 800 square feet. When preparing the interim ordinance, the city's ADU ordinance was referenced, allowing a maximum size SB 9 unit of 1,200 square feet on lots over 8,000 square feet, whether it was an existing lot or SB 9 lot split. Since the adoption of the interim ordinance, the city has received inquiries regarding opportunities to allow residential units larger than 1,200 square feet on lots larger than 10,000 square feet. Lots over 10,000 square feet could potentially accommodate units over 1,200 square feet while still meeting code standards and providing adequate outdoor space on the property. A possible unit size to consider on these larger lots is 2,500 square feet. In addition to considering the size of new SB 9 units, staff asked the Planning Commission to provide direction on expanding the size of existing residences on the property. When an SB 9 unit is added to the property with an existing dwelling unit, both units become SB 9 units. The interim ordinance currently restricts the opportunity for the existing residence to be expanded beyond the maximum size allowed. Moving forward, staff will continue to refine the permanent ordinance with Planning Commission's recommendations and return back to Planning Commission by August of 2023. City Council will consider the permanent ordinance by October 2023 in order to have the ordinance in place by December 17th. And staff recommends that the Planning Commission receive this report and provide direction to staff on permanent provisions for the 2-unit residential development. And staff is available for questions.
Okay. What we're going to do is, if it's okay with everybody here, what we'll do is we'll ask general questions, then we'll break it down into the 3 areas specifically. So initially, we can ask Ms. Richardson questions on just what she's presented, and then we'll break it down between parking, open space, and then unit size restrictions. Questions for staff? Commissioner Mayer.
Thank you. What is currently the requirement for primary dwelling units in regards to parking? Like if you wanted to build your own house right now?
So if you wanted to build a new single-family
Yeah.
residence,
No
You would-
SB 9.
no SB 9, you would be required to provide a 2-car garage.
And Commissioner Mayor, there's also another standard in the code which requires a 20 by 20 parking space in front of that garage.
Thank you. Remind me again, I know we discussed this before, can you have a shed on that property as well? Let's go back to that picture if we can for a second. Figure 1, I guess that's the only thing that we had here.
Could we put the slide up on the screen?
Is this the diagram you
No,
were looking for?
This,
Or you
you.
were looking for?
It's the one with the house
and,
and the
and 2 ADUs. Yeah, that one. So can we have a shed here too? Thank you.
shed are you making?
Well,
You could have a storage shed in a scenario like what's up on the screen. You would just be restricted to the open space, the coverage requirements, the 40% coverage requirements.
And the setback requirements and various situations. So there's a potential for a shed
okay,
in this
thank you.
situation.
I have one more, John. How big is the demand for SB 9s currently? Like you said, there's a demand to have
We-
bigger SB
right.
9s.
We currently have 5 SB 9 projects in plan check. We have not yet received an application for an SB 9 lot split. However, we have been actively speaking with approximately 3 residents interested in SB 9 lot splits. And we've been speaking with more residents about SB 9 development than the 5 that are in plan check.
And how big are those SB 9s? 800 square feet?
I don't recall the size of them, but they are typically maxing out the allowed unit size by the interim ordinance.
Okay, thank you so much.
Which is 1,200 square feet?
Depends upon the lot, the size of the lot. If the lot's under 5,000 square
Oh, then
feet,
it's 800.
limited to 800.
Got it.
5 to 8,000 square feet is limited to 1,000, and over 8,000 square feet is currently limited to 1,200.
Perfect.
I have one more.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Where are those SB9s located currently? Like, not the addresses, but in the city? Like, are they in the hills? Are they? Yeah, yeah.
General
Yeah.
area, they're throughout the city.
Throughout the city, but I would say that around the valley flow, not the hills.
Thank you. Thank you.
any within the 1 mile area of the Metrolink?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
There, I'll also expand on that. The ones that have crossed my desks, several of them are standard size house lots. A few of them are more, one or two of them like larger rural size lots.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Yeah, to expand on Commissioner Mayer's there with the auxiliary dwelling sheds, things along horse barns, existing horse facilities, how would that kind of play in with the lot size and ADU setbacks and such?
So the facilities for horses, like your barns and your corrals, they would be reviewed as their own separate item as part of the site plan. And then we would review the site plan for SB9 development as its own separate rule. And then combined, we would be looking at the rules and regulations for the setback coverage. There's 40% setback coverage that they would have.
Okay, so that would be the conflict there would be possibly the 40% setback coverage.
Potentially, we would look at those on a site-by-site basis to see how they're designed and see if there's opportunities to still allow the development, the SB9 and ADU developments that they're inquiring about, and see how their existing development on the site would impact that.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Kennedy, I think to follow up on that comment, a lot of the horse properties are at least 3/4 to 1 acre. When you get into SB9 units and 40% rules, there's still lots of room to place the second unit, maybe an ADU, and keep your horses.
Any other general questions? Commissioner Mann.
Page 2, fourth or fifth bullet item down, subdivided lots must have a minimum lot size of 1,200 square feet, and each lot created by the lot split must be at least 40% of the original lot size. So if the lot size is 10,000 square feet, the SB9 has to be 4,000 square feet? Am I misreading something?
Which document are you in? Are you in the staff report? You're in the staff report. Page 2 of the staff report.
Yeah, that's the property size, not the unit size. So
So if the lot's 10,000 square feet, does my SB9 lot split have to be 40% of the 10,000?
a 60/40 ratio or less has to be maintained. It could be 50/50, 55/45, but you need a 40/60 ratio.
So again, if I have a 10,000 square foot lot and I want to do a lot split under SB9, does the new lot I create have to be 4,000 square feet?
Yes.
Yes, a smaller lot has to be a minimum of 4,000 square feet.
So in your diagram, the SB9 lot is nowhere near 40% of that photo or of that diagram.
So in this example, they're not interested in splitting the lot. They're just interested in developing the lot with the 4 units. Keeping the existing single-family residence, adding the SB9 unit, and then adding the 2 ADUs. So SB9 does not require the lot split. You could take your existing single-family home lot,
Okay,
leave it intact,
right?
and still develop it as the
SB9
exhibit on the
So,
screen
okay,
shows.
so you don't need to do a lot split to have an SB9 unit on there.
No, but you could.
Okay.
Somebody could come in and somebody could make an application to the city for both development of SB9 and split their lot.
Got it. Okay, that was my confusion. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Currently, we're talking about you have to be a resident for 3 years occupying the home. Is there, how do we track that, or would be tracking that? Do we know?
We could require them to record an affidavit on their property deed restriction, certifying that they would live on the property for 3 years. And that living on the property, they could live in any one of those 4 units. They could live in the J ADU and rent out the other 3 units.
Perfect. And then it says, we're talking about flood zones. What percentage of our city is currently in a flood zone, Mr. Seamers?
We'll bring up Deputy Public Works Director Brent Seymour.
And then the follow-up question, which you understand will be, is what between now and December might be taken out of the flood zone?
Brent Seymour, Deputy Public Works Director, Floodplain Manager. We have 45,000 lots in the city, and a little over 5,000 might have a touch or completely in, so that gives you a proportion. As far as the number of structures, it's about a little over 2,000 that are in floodplain or touching it. As far as the effect of the work we're doing, we're probably talking next April before something would happen, but a pretty sizable chunk of both floodplain and structures will be removed at that time. But we do occasionally have ADU applications that come in. They are able to get an application that would expand the existing structure. So if it's attached, we're able to do that as long as it doesn't increase by more than 50%. But building something brand new, fully in the flood zone, they're currently stopped from doing that.
So then, just not to press you exactly on a number, you said approximately 2,000 structures or homes are in, and then a year from now, how many would be potentially out of the 2,000?
It's recorded, I guess 500.
Okay.
We potentially are taking 1,600 out with the application. We're working on that, so it's sizable.
Extremely, and great for our residents
Thank you.
with their flood zone insurance.
Maybe another quick question. Same
Please.
question on the high fire zones, structures in those currently?
Ask away.
Megan, can you turn off my PowerPoint really quick? I have an exhibit that shows. Okay. Can you turn me back on, please? Yeah, please. So this is an exhibit that we had for the interim ordinance when we were introducing SB 9. And on this screen, the red areas are the high fire hazard areas of the city. This is actually a diagram that shows all of the hazards. The hatched area going across the top of the screen here, this is the Alquist-Priola Fault Zone. The purple here, this is flood zone. Green is wildlife corridors. And the hatched areas, these are all of the zones that are affected by SB 9. And the purple is the flood zone.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's do this. Unless there's more general questions, we're going to tackle these one at a time. We're asked or tasked to give some opinions on I think the parking is going to probably take us the longest amount of time. So we have about 4 or 5 options with opinions on each. Inside parking, sharing inside parking, 1-car garage for each. Open parking, meaning kind of more on the street probably. New construction, and then no change whatsoever. Comments, questions about direction to give staff about parking? We're looking for,
Well, I think maybe another thing to consider is maybe the width of the street might be taken into account. Well, I mean, the width of the street too. I mean, well, and also some of these, we're talking like an awful lot of concrete here. Like, for example, in scenario B, that's an awful lot of concrete to go way back there. And that takes an awful lot of landscaping out.
as does D.
And
And
yeah,
there's
I
another-
agree. D's a, well, but at least D, there's only one curb cut there, so that's, so, but, you know, I mean, if this is one of those like really narrow, some of the streets in the city are really narrow, and you would have no parking on the street because they're just really tiny, narrow streets. But if you have maybe some of the older streets that are really wide, you might be able to park some. So I think that, I just think that that's something to consider possibly.
The size of the
The
street
size of the
itself.
street might be something that we consider when we're, you know, for SB9 or ADU or whatever. That's something to possibly consider. When we're factoring in
I mean,
parking.
you can factor in then the width of the lot, whether, if you're at the end of the cul-de-sac, odds are you're not gonna be able to do scenario B.
That's
So you would
Exact-
eliminate anybody at the end of the cul-de-sac
exactly.
from doing
And that's
this if we
another,
put
I
in
agree.
Scenario B.
I agree.
Well-
I think B is just a non-starter.
I think we also need to factor in if those lots are affordable or not, if they qualify for affordable, because that's the whole point of SB 9, and there's no secret how I feel about that. So I feel like we need to factor in if the lots are going to be qualifying for
don't think-
meeting RENA standards.
I don't think affordability has anything to do with this, does it?
No.
But SB 9 initially, the idea behind it is that we create more affordable housing,
Yes,
which
but-
this is not going to create more affordable.
Correct. I mean, but there's no affordability component in this.
There's
Correct.
not, but I feel like if housing does qualify to be affordable, then some of the parking restrictions can be lowered. But if a requirement for a new house is to have two-car garage, then we should push as much as we can, because eventually they can split the lot. And how are they going to agree on the parking? And that's going to be a new nightmare for the city as well,
I'll give you that.
if they do split the lot and you have two different homeowners.
So, Commissioner Mayor, if
Yeah.
the property was split, then the parking for the units needs to be located on their individual lots.
Yeah.
So how are we, I mean, down the line, if you now allow them to have two SB9 units and two ADU units, how are we gonna regulate that in the future?
So, right, so if it's a lot split, then they could either design it as a flag lot, or if they wanted to separate it in the middle, they would have a driveway easement for the rear lot to access through the front lot's property.
So we're still talking about a curb cut regardless, if they're splitting the lot down
If
the
they're
line.
splitting- Right, if they're splitting the lot, there could potentially be a new curb cut.
I guess, I mean, I guess the problem is that we can't predict if they're going to split the lot or not. But in my opinion, somebody would be crazy not to split it and sell if they want to sell the house. Because you could sell two homes instead of one.
With a shared garage, there'd be no lot splitting.
Correct.
Okay.
And Commissioner Mayor, the lot split may typically come brought to our attention up front. And if you do a lot split, each lot has to stand on its own. So
Yeah. I understand that.
that's how that would happen.
Thank you.
In scenario D, with a shared garage, could you do a lot split down that garage, or the fact that you've made it a shared garage prevent you from doing a lot split at a later time? In scenario D, new construction,
Right. You couldn't split it because you can't have the building on the property line.
okay,
In a scenario like scenario D, coming in with a vacant lot,
right?
generally they would be, as Sean says, they generally come in to us with the scenario to both develop the site with SB9 and to split those lots.
Okay.
And Commissioner Mann, scenario D is kind of a great situation because you have a vacant lot. Everyone knows how to kind of build a townhouse type unit, which you see all over town, the newer townhouses have the garages built into the building. It
Right.
could be a duplex situation, one shared garage. It doesn't have to be in that shape as shown on
Right.
on the exhibit, but that was just an example. It could be a straight-in driveway with a lot less pavement as well.
So back to, if scenario B, again, if it's the end of a cul-de-sac, scenario B isn't going to work, scenario C wouldn't work either. So if we're coming up with a uniform standard, we have to take into consideration if it's a narrow lot, how do they get to a garage or a driveway, a garage in the back of the unit, if we're going to put in the fact that they need to build a garage.
So I'll-
Sorry, go
That's-
ahead.
looking at scenario B, which is to require a new one-car garage for the SB9 unit, in that scenario is the garage is in the backyard of the area. It could be in the front yard. The pros and cons of that is if they can't fit a new garage on the property, then maybe they can't do the SB9 unit. So there's pros and cons of some of these parking requirements. If we don't require parking, then they have more ability to build an SB9 unit. If we do require the one parking space, there might be situations like the cul-de-sac where it's just not practical to stick a garage in the front yard and attach it to the house or whatever. So whichever decision the commission and council make on this, it's going to affect whether SB9s are built or not.
Right. In scenario E, could we put a garage in the right front corner? Not attached to the building under our current code?
Without splitting the lot.
Yeah, without splitting the lot, just with an SB9 unit, could we just add a garage in the bottom right-hand corner? And that garage would then, in theory, be designated as a garage for the SB9 unit.
Well, perhaps on a scenario E, they may have a wide side yard next to the garage, maybe not in the main front yard, but on the left-hand side of,
I'm just talking about right in the right front corner. Couldn't have a garage? Look, get my little picture, my little pin there.
I guess it's no.
In this area right here, could I build a garage right here? And call that the garage for SB9, for the SB9 unit?
potentially.
Okay, again, with a curb cut and with the proper access, but do I need to have a 20-foot driveway for that garage, or can I build a garage in what's my front setback?
I believe we could require a 20-foot driveway at this point till the state says we can't.
Okay,
And to answer that question, there are some houses in the city that have dual garages in their front yard with two separate driveways, so it's not out of the question.
okay. Again, I'm just trying to figure out if we're gonna do something that's broad sweeping for everybody, people in the end of a cul-de-sac may be eliminated, or people that have narrow lots that don't have the ability to put a driveway down the side unless we go with scenario A, which is a shared garage, and then we have an enforcement issue because bottom line is, the person in the main house is gonna tell the SB9 unit, you're not getting in the garage after the fact. But, a lot of this has other enforcements, because how do you enforce somebody from staying in the house for 3 years? And what's the penalty if they don't stay in the house for 3 years? And is there the ability of, what the person dies? They're not staying in the house for 3 years, so enforcement after the fact is somewhat difficult to deal with. So to come up with some kind of general plan in a perfect world, yeah, we can come up with that. Something that's, just absolute, probably not.
Would it be terrible to go with just options B and D so that you're eliminating the amount of parking on the street and eliminating the shared garage?
I agree with that.
B and D.
So let me ask about B. Your SB9 unit there can be 2,500 square feet if the lot is large enough.
That's another discussion we'll be doing down the road.
But it was a garage question, though. You're only going to require one garage in scenario B. One car parking garage
That's a new one-car garage.
for a 2,500 square foot additional dwelling.
A minimum of one car.
Right. Right. Minimum.
And I think that's a state.
That's, yeah.
It's a lot of bedrooms and baths for one car,
Yeah,
This-
right.
additional garage.
And this does not preclude a builder from building a larger garage. This is what the code requires no more than one, but you could build as many as you could fit.
Understand? I'm just worried about the on-street parking with the one-car garage and a 2,500 square foot additional building.
I agree.
In theory, you have that now, you have a family of 5 with 5 cars driving at the end of a cul-de-sac or on any street. Most people don't put their $100,000 cars in the garage, they put their $5,000 worth of stuff, and all the cars go on the driveway and on the street. So you have that currently, so we're gonna exasperate it, but there's not a whole lot we can do.
You're going to double it.
Yes.
So it seems like we may be in consensus on this, scenarios B and D is moving forward for parking. Beautiful. All right, I think that's the heavier of the 2 or 3. Next one is open space. 40% required. Questions, comments about that?
Okay, 40% is of open space. That's for permitted structures. We'll go back to
Yeah.
the storage sheds. Do all storage sheds require a permit, or storage sheds under a certain square footage don't?
We require zoning clearance for all storage sheds.
So if I put up a 5x5 storage shed, I need to get a zoning clearance.
That's correct.
Even if it's a temporary, go to a Home Depot type metal storage building,
That's correct.
any storage shed
In
needs a zoning
theory.
clearance.
Don't say metal storage shed.
Yeah. You missed that meeting.
Okay, I missed that meeting. I don't know what else you would call them. So in theory, they need a zoning clearance.
Correct.
It's an over-the-counter zoning clearance?
Yes.
At what size does it need a permit or something other than a zoning clearance?
120 square feet
Okay.
requires a building permit.
Is there any difference if it's a permanent structure versus a quote-unquote temporary structure for 120 square feet? Or does the city even have a differentiation between permanent and? Yeah, I did
That
miss
was
a
the
little
meeting you missed.
Is there a differentiation between 120 square feet, permanent or temporary? Okay.
Yes.
When you say temporary, are you saying like the Rubbermaid tough sheds you can get
Or
from
a
Home Depot?
metal storage container.
Or-
You can only have one storage, like,
So let me try to rein this in.
Thank you, sorry, missed one meeting and,
A building permit kicks in at 120 square feet along with the zoning clearance.
okay,
And any sort of structure, even under 120 square feet, should comply with the setback requirements.
got it. Okay. What I was getting to was with the 40%, does that include all the other accessory buildings as well? And evidently it does, because anything should have a zoning clearance, so any building on that property should have, the city should know about it, or that covers the 40%.
Right.
Okay,
so
sorry.
in that figure 1, I'm sorry, do you have more questions?
Yes.
Oh.
Does it matter if the 40% in the front, side, or rear yard? The 40% can be anywhere on the lot?
It's all of the required setbacks. So the 20-foot rear yard setback, you
Okay,
can only cover 40%. The required 5-foot side yard setback, you can only cover 40%.
and does it matter whether we're talking slope up or slope down? It's lot size, not usable lot size, or total lot size?
That might be one of your comments, because right now it just says 40% of the required rear yard. If you have that big slope in the back of your yard that you can't use anyway, that's a nuance. Every property is different in the city, so some people may benefit or not gain from that, or vice versa. So
Okay.
one of the options we talked about is having some level amount of square footage to maintain open space to allow for usable open space.
Okay. Sorry, I've dominated the conversation, please. See what happens, I miss one meeting, I just keep everything
Bad
for the
one to
next one.
miss, man.
Exactly.
You should watch it when you.
Commissioner Mayor, you want to proceed?
Yeah, so I'm very much in favor of keeping as much open space as we can, because nobody, when they buy a house, nobody actually envisions buying a house next to 4 more homes if there's one home right next to you. So not that I want to limit people who want to alter their property, it's just that we need to live together in the city. So whatever we can do to kind of minimize the impact on the neighbors as well.
So, having said that, we could just keep it with the 40%, but then you could increase or lessen the amount of usage if we didn't allow a slope
Yeah.
to be considered part of that.
Very creative.
Wait a minute, we're not going to count the slope towards,
Well, if we're trying to limit the amount of, we're trying to maximize the, limit the, what are we, how are we going to put it?
so
Limit,
we're saying that a slope is not open space. Is
correct.
that-
Well, it wouldn't be covered as part of the 40%.
Boy.
Well, then you get into a whole conversation of what degree of slope is it, and
Yeah, I'm a little, this is a
Okay.
little shady to me. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with
I
that.
like the idea of.
I like the
Concept.
idea of the open space. I like
Right.
that. I think that that's a good idea, but I don't feel comfortable.
That's why we're discussing
starting
this.
Yeah.
to get into this slope business. This is getting a little.
So right now, we have to provide 100 square feet of 100 square foot level open space,
No,
or that's a proposal?
that's a
A
proposal.
Got it,
possibility.
okay. So basically a 10 by 10 patio for every ADU, SB9, whatever you want to call it. Okay.
Right.
So that there could be a best of both worlds. We can keep the 40% rule regardless of slope, but also have an additional requirement for some square footage of level open
Yes.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be good with that.
Sold.
Yeah.
That's what
I think we're good with that one.
Commissioner Kennedy, you okay?
Yeah, I'm just thinking 100 feet may not be enough, right? Again, to the size, maybe we should be proportional to the size of the dwelling.
No, there you go.
Absolutely. And, when we come back to the hearing, we'll look at all scenarios and try to maximize these areas where we can. Then the final numbers could be brought to you, and it could also be adjusted at that point.
Yeah.
Good read.
Perfect. Do we need to discuss reducing the size of the accessory dwellings or no?
All right. On this one, yeah, I think that's what I think Commissioner Kennedy brought up
Would you?
before. I'd like for us to talk about this for a minute, if that's possible.
That's what we're talking about right now.
So let's go to the 10,000 square feet and above, and let's go there. So the others seem to be the same as the interim rules, but this 10,000 feet and above, our interim rules are 12,000 square feet, and all of a sudden we jump up to 20. Our proposed rules are 2,500 square feet.
Up to
Up
20
to.
2,500.
How did we come up with 2,500 square feet?
Arbitrary.
Arbitrary. Arbitrary.
I'm sorry, staff?
I'm sure it wasn't arbitrary.
I apologize. Get me in trouble. It was very thought out.
So, again, a little backtracking. When the SB 9 ordinance came originally back to the Commission and Council in 2021, we weren't sure where this ordinance was going, so we put a 1,200 square foot limit to see,
Yeah.
make sure things didn't get out of hand. And like Elizabeth said earlier, is some people have larger farm lots and they want to make nicer homes, and there's room to obviously do it. So 2,500 square feet is a suggested talking point. It could be unlimited. It could be 3,000. We're just trying to get an idea, especially for larger lots, and even the other lot sizes. They're kind of in line with the ADU ordinance, 1,000 and 1,200. Other factors are some of these SB 9 units are 2 stories, so the SB 9 units might be stacked. So there's a lot of options. But if you want to restrict lot size, this is your opportunity. Unit
Okay.
size.
Well, let's go back to what one of the commissioners said just a few minutes ago. If our goal is to make affordable units, what if we made it 2,000 square feet? And just reduce the size? I mean, if the goal really is to make more affordable units, then make it smaller rather than larger.
Somebody's not going to build a 2,000 square foot affordable unit.
If they're going to make 2,500 square foot ones, they would make 2,000 square foot ones.
I got to be convinced they're doing this for their own personal use and extended family members. or
Not
something else.
affordable, not for affordability.
Yeah, not for affordability.
If they're not doing it for affordability, then they aren't going to do it. So, I don't know. If it's 500 square feet, I don't know.
So, point of clarification on this, there's a couple of units that have been built in my neighborhood that appear to be 3 stories from the street.
Ooh.
And only 2 stories from the back because of the slope build that they were built on. So is this an ANSI measurement standard that we're using here for all of the livable condition space? or is it a footprint type of square footage?
Commissioner Kennedy, that's a great question. The regular intent of the square footage is the habitable space, excluding garages. If you want to get more technical, you probably don't want to get technical on the story height. We just like to use a square footage number. But if that 2,500 or 1,200 should exclude the garage, because the ordinance starting at 800 square feet is livable space regardless of the garage. So I'd just like to keep it just a habitable space.
Yeah, just point of clarification. And on these structures that have built-in expandable attic space unfinished, if it's conditioned space, then it becomes livable space, even though it's not finished out. Or I know there's some nuance there, but I can see these things growing on you square footage wise.
Yeah, the building code regulates when those attic lofts become habitable, so then it becomes square footage. If they're not habitable, then they're not square footage.
So just to get a vibe on what we've discussed so far, I think we're okay with the first three areas, 8,000 up to 10,000. We have a little bit of a discussion to finalize on the 10,001 and above in terms of size of the square feet of the house. 2,500 maximum, are we going to go with 2,500 maximum or?
I don't see how that's going to be affordable. I agree.
Okay.
Can I go back to the percentage? You've
bet.
got a main dwelling. Let's say the main dwelling is only 1,800 square feet, right? And we calculate a percentage, in other words, based on the existing square footage and tie that to the SB 9.
But we don't have that under the ADUs. There's no percentage.
But
there-
we do
This is
have-
separate.
Right, it is, but I mean, if we want to try and be consistent with ADUs and SB 9s,
But I think ADUs are limited
To
too.
clarify,
But there's no
attached ADUs do have a percentage, so it's 800 square feet. All-
unattached, but what about unattached ADUs?
detached ADUs are not tied
Right.
to the main home.
'Cause- I mean,
And we don't have the maximum size.
Is a percentage going to be easier to deal with? I didn't think so.
no, because otherwise, if you have an
Just-
800 square foot main house,
Just for the record, Naren Garsarank indicated no. He was saying no, waving his head back and forth. Is that your response? I need a verbal response.
correct, sorry.
So
Okay.
the answer is no to that question.
Thank you. So, we want to make it as easy as possible for the public, our staff.
We could put another line item in if somebody wanted to do, 10 to 20,000 and 20,000 and above, in case somebody, like horse property or some large rural properties. If
We
wanted
can,
to
we
do-
can add another level.
Correct.
I mean, you could kick up 8,000 to 20,000, keep it at 1,200. If you have a half-acre lot, then you
Right.
could maybe go higher. There's lots of options.
Versus an acre lot. I mean, I don't think we're talking SB 9 necessarily is going to be affordable units.
Correct.
Well, if it's an acre lot.
On the larger ones, we're probably not going to be doing affordability for doing this.
Correct.
So, having said that, do we want to split the lot size to a higher amount?
I'm actually okay with staff recommendations. I mean, it's,
Vice Chair Rice,
I just think it's too big, that's all.
Okay.
I agree.
okay,
I think 2,500 is just too much, but
is 2,000? And then we add a
I mean,
Fifth
are
level?
we gonna put another
level?
level there? Is that what our plan is? Like,
I think if it's a big lot, if it's an estate lot, then it's not necessarily going to impact the neighbors that much if a house is bigger. But if you have a 10,000 square feet lot with a slope, is not a big lot.
So in my opinion, that tonight's purpose is to give staff direction. You know how we are feeling in terms of the last level. So it means going to an additional size limiting the 10,001 to whatever size that goes to and having that be 2,000, and then a larger lot size with a larger size. We have till August to come up with those recommendations before they come back.
Yeah, I think we'll come back with clarification on that 10,000 square foot because there's a number of 10,000 lots on the valley floor, which are at end of cul-de-sacs, and 2,500 may be too large versus a more of a ranchette sort of lot. So there might be some additional categories or that numbers that we could present to you to make sure you know what you're getting into.
One last comment on this. I noticed it was fairly incremental. There's a 200 square foot increase, 8 to 1,000, 1,000 to 12, and then the doubling.
Yeah, that's why I was, I'm like, we're just, boom, doubling.
Yeah. So I agree. Maybe another slot in there to where you get into the real RE type properties that have a lot of lot size and setbacks and such as that.
Again, I think our intent is to let them know how we're thinking. I think we just shared that.
And there's
So staff had one additional question related to size restrictions, and that is related to expanding the existing single-family residence. And that is because when an SB 9 unit is added to a property that has an existing single-family residence, you now have 2 SB 9 units that are limited in size. And one question that's also come up is when you have your single-family home, say it's 2,000 square feet, currently under the rules, you can't expand that house. You can't add a new bathroom. You can't add a new family room. And the question that staff has for Planning Commission to consider is if it's reasonable to allow that existing single-family residence to expand, say, a percentage of the existing square footage or have no restriction.
Okay.
Any thoughts on not letting them expand?
After they've built the SB 9 units? Is that the
Correct.
question?
Can I just add to that? So the scenario would be, for example, you have a 2,500 square foot home on a 8,000 square foot lot. They add a 1,000 square foot SB 9 unit. Now that 2,500 square foot single family lot is actually an SB 9 unit, but it exceeds the maximum 1,000 square feet. So in effect, it's legal non-conforming. So the question is, can we add to that? Are we okay with them adding to the 2,500 square foot house because that is now a legal non-conforming SB 9 unit?
That's a great question from staff.
No, they're looking for direction from us.
My answer would be yes. I mean, the fact that you should not hamstring them because they've created one SB 9 lot, which by default makes their lot an SB 9 lot, and now you're telling them they can't expand.
So that's what they're
To
asking.
clarify, I'm not talking about an SB 9 lot split. I'm
Right.
talking about two
SB
SB 9s on one lot.
SB 9,
but
correct.
it would apply with lot split
Right,
as
so
well,
if
I
somebody
guess.
built an SB 9 and then inadvertently they've hamstringed themselves that they can't expand their own house at a later date.
I think we're all in agreement that that's not the scenario we want.
Correct.
And then, so that's the direction. And then the next part would be maybe come up with a percentage on the existing size to limit it. Any other comments on that part? Because that's the question they're asking.
Yeah, you would know that you're buying an SB 9 house. So that's, I mean, you know what you're getting yourself into.
Well, this could also be the scenario where the resident develops a property with SB 9. So they've added the SB 9 unit to create that legacy or to create another income unit into their property. But then they have a master bedroom a master bathroom that's tiny, and they decide to expand that at a later date. Under current rules, they can't expand that bathroom.
Or making it ADU compliant for a parent who needs additional space for whatever, ramps.
ADU development would be separate.
Okay,
That would be under the ADU ordinance.
okay.
So junior ADU could be added to that house or not?
So-
Junior ADU would convert the existing house.
Yeah, junior ADUs generally convert the existing house. However, if you can add to the home, then you can add to the home and convert that to a junior ADU as well. So that kind of gets us back to square one on the question.
Yeah.
My only thing would be that maybe it just has to be at a later date, like we set some sort of minimal thing in the future, and that we think about this a little bit just to make sure that there's not some sort of
Like a
thing that we're missing here. Like,
Oh, yeah. This is not.
like there's
getting
some way that
stamped
somebody
in the
can
rule.
game the system somehow.
Yeah, yeah,
that-
yeah.
There's always a way somebody can
I
game the-
just have a
there's always
funny
some way
feeling we're
to game
missing
the system, but
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of
But if
hamstringing
the-
somebody, letting them do something.
Right, like you said, like they make it 80, they need a bigger bathroom
Right.
or whirlpool tub or some great, like something like that. Yeah, I want to make sure they can do that.
Right.
But if they have to wait a year or 18 months or whatever it is, yeah, that absolutely. But
I just don't want it to be like a loophole. Let's like build 2 lots and then just keep on adding.
yeah,
And just,
exactly. Yeah, some sort
Winchester
of
House.
Okay. Let's put that in the minutes, Winchester House.
Yes. Please don't.
There was something else, Mr. Gibson? Okay, beautiful. All right. Oral communications and reports. Does staff have anything to report?
No items tonight.
Do any commissioners have anything to report?
Yes, Chairperson.
Vice Chair Rice.
Yes, Chairperson. I just wanted to let the other commissioners know how honored we are to have our Planning Commissioner's very own John Tolson, who's the Simi Valley Volunteer of the Year, on our Planning Commission here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's what I wanted to say too.
I appreciate
Yeah, me
that.
too.
And thank you, Commissioner Kennedy, for saying the same thing. All right. I wanted to say thanks for Leadership Simi Valley showing up again tonight. Recognize anybody who goes through that program. Smart people. Any other commissioners? Otherwise, we go to Mobile Home Rent Mediation Board.
No items tonight.
Tree Advisory Board.
No items this meeting.
We are at this concludes the meeting of April 26, 2023. Next scheduled meeting will be May 3rd, 2023. This meeting is adjourned.
Do we actually have stuff for May 3rd?